Can't hear anything.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the July 8th regular Des Moines City Council meeting to order. And I would like to ask Councilmember Nutting to please lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, I've been informed Councilmember Martinelli is absent due to a family matter. Is there a motion to excuse?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
And the motion made by Deputy Mayor Mahoney, seconded by Councilmember Buxton. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. See Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and Councilmember Banks and myself. Okay, passes 6-0. At this time, we'll go to correspondence and written public comments. I yield to Bonnie. Give me 1 second to mute so we don't feedback.
Thank you, Mayor. The following have provided written public comment for tonight. Bill and Annette Dwyer, Woodmont Driving Safety. Stephen Plaza, Memorial Park. Betsy Sproger, Dead Man's Curve. Rebecca Stapleton, please make city council meetings available anytime. And the following have been admitted to the meeting to give public comment. First, we have Phyllis Crawford and then Dan Wallstrom. And that concludes public comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, before we take comments from the public, I'd just like to remind those that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or will become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be muted and removed from the meeting. We do appreciate you taking time out of your evening to speak. And the first speaker is Phyllis Crawford. Her microphone is muted at this time. Can you, there we go.
Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. I would like to just start by saying people are more important than trees. And I'm not saying that to you. I am saying that to myself as a reminder of choosing the words that are appropriate because I'm talking to people. Thank you for this process of public comment. It's important to me, and I'm sure it's important to a lot of people to be able to have an opportunity to address you about our concerns. And so I have this concern, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity. I want to say a special thanks to a special council person, Tracy Buxton, who showed me a particular kindness to come out today, take a look at what I wanted to show her about my trees, and to just offer me some compassion, some understanding, and even some insight in that. She said, you know, look, I see look at those there's some new growth. Those are going to grow. So even though there are parts that won't grow back, I have hope for the future that my tree will look better than it does right now, my trees. So I am just really appreciative, and I want to just say kudos to her because she represented well to really show me that the city of Des Moines has empathy, the leadership has empathy and compassion. I'm Phyllis Crawford, as you know. Just a little bit about myself. I've lived in Des Moines for 41 years. I started off in an apartment nearby, lived there for about 7 years, and then I bought this home that I'm in, and I've been here for 34 years. I educated my son most of the time in Des Moines, at the elementary schools and in the high school, Mount Rainier. I myself attended part-time at Highline and went from there and earned several Masters of Business Administration degrees at City University. And then from there, I earned a master's degree in education at Capella University. My reason for actually attending this council meeting tonight is for my personal peace. I want to, this whole thing, no matter how difficult of a trial it has been for me, I want to maintain the peace that I think is important in life. And so it's for my personal peace, also so that something that I might say might impress the council enough that could cause changes, so that, and maybe in your processes or in your rationale of when you make decisions to go and cut trees and save someone else some
Excuse
heartache.
me, Ms.
And I
Crawford,
think of those two things.
there's a time limit and you're at that limit. I will allow you to
Oh,
continue, but please wrap your thoughts up, please.
I will. My trees are important to me for several reasons. I grew them from when they could fit in the car and be brought home. They've been growing for 34 years and I cared for them. But the process of what happened to me was when I woke up I walk in my neighborhood, and normally I walk going north, but at this time I walked south. And so I discovered that one of my trees, my evergreen tree, was cut. And I said, oh, let me call the city. So I called and I left several messages on different people's lines saying somebody cut my tree. I remember 15 years ago, they came out and they just sliced down the side of one tree. A man came out and said, well, do you want to make it symmetrical? And we cut the other side. We did. So the next day, one of your officials, Anthony Jones, I believe is his name, he knocked on the door. And so we were talking for a while. I said, go look at what was done to the tree. Go look. He said, no, it's more, it's all of them. I said, no, go look. So finally he kept saying, I went to look. Someone had come back out, cut and gashed into the other evergreen and my cherry. I
Ms.
feel like somebody should have knocked on my door and said, we have a problem.
I'm sorry, you're over the time and I have to be fair to everyone. I know that Councilmember Buxton has talked with you and you've talked with several staff members. We are also willing to accept anything in writing. It sounds like things are moving in the right direction and you have left some meaningful comments with us. So I do want to thank you for that, but I have to move on to the next person who signed up to speak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Dan Wallstrom. And Dan, I don't know if I overlooked this in the beginning, but everybody has 3 minutes.
Thank you, fellow city council members and honored guests. I am joining with the neighbors here in Woodmont area, asking and requesting for improvements to the intersection of Marine View Drive and Woodmont Beach Drive South. This road takes very sharp blind corner bend, and drivers have been susceptible to leaving this roadway due to excessive speed. I think the city of Des Moines and the Des Moines Police Department is well aware of this liability that exists on this piece of the road. And so we would really hate to have someone hurt here. There have been injuries in the past. There has been property damage. Just last April, I got a phone call. I was in California working, got a phone call 1:30 in the morning saying there was a car upside down in my driveway. And that was a wake-up call for me, and really launched this effort to understand what's going on with this corner, this piece of road. It's very dangerous. The roadway presents a danger to homeowners, drivers, walkers, cyclists, and it's just a matter of time before someone's going to get seriously hurt or worse. Fast forward a month later, in April, cars coming down Greenview Drive, reportedly going 85 miles an hour, missed the turn, went straight into the hedges in front of our friend Joe's house, just barely missed going straight into his house. So this is a very dangerous road, and we are requesting action. We know the city has put up some bumps and signs and reflectors, and that's great. We appreciate that, but we would like more done. We would like the city to consider a roundabout or a center median that would actually physically keep cars from leaving the roadway. That's the real problem here. It's not, and it's due to excessive speed. I get that. We need to slow down the drivers as they're coming around this corner. But the fact is that if they're going too fast or they're inebriated or impaired, like these last two accidents have been, they're not going to negotiate that turn. And so we're requesting something physically keeping them out of our front driveway and out of our yard, because there are a handful of houses on here, and it is a very dangerous place to live. We just moved in here in November. I'm a lifelong Des Moines resident. I moved back into this particular house because it's beautiful. Woodmont community, Des Moines is an awesome place to live and work and walk. But this area, it presents a real challenge for us. And all the neighbors have gathered together. We've sent numerous letters. I think we talked to Bonnie, we're up to 12 or 15 letters now that we've sent in. And we've sent in a petition of about 45, 50 people have signed that in support of this effort.
Well,
Yes.
I want to thank you for, coming and talking to us. We will follow up with the city manager's office and the staff and see if they're, see where we're at on that. It's roadway issues are a challenge. I think you made the point about sometimes when people are inebriated, I'm not sure that they would be able to navigate a traffic circle either, but I'm not a traffic engineer. But I do understand what you're saying, and we take the traffic situation in Redondo very seriously. So I just want to say thank you for, again, connecting with us on this tonight.
Yes, thank you, council members. And I just I just really want to ask, what are we going to do here? And please, we're the residents, 160 homes here in Woodmont are waiting to hear from you as to what we can do as the next step. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the end of correspondence? Okay, this takes us forward to our city manager's report. City manager.
Mayor, thank you. Yeah, good evening, everyone. The main thing I just wanted to report a little bit on some of the activities that were associated. 4th of July was relatively quiet. That's always the case. We can say that. If you ask the police, that would probably not be their characterization. But I know that they were involved in enforcement of the fireworks ban and a number of other issues that come up in that setting. We had also a response to the heat wave, which was unexpected, unprecedented, and extraordinary, really. So what we did on Monday was, in cooperation with Highline College, we established a cooling center And I appreciate Nicole, I know is involved in that, Rochelle, Shannon helped staff that. And on Monday, when the temperature was 108 degrees, we had 45 people who came up to the student union, take advantage of the cooling station. On Tuesday, when the temperature was 85 degrees, very significant drop, we had one person. So we had 3 staff people and one person who utilized it. But that may have been, beneficial for that person, and that's all that really matters is safety of our residents. Grace Lutheran Church had a cooling center on Monday. We don't have statistics relative to participation with that. The whole response to the heat event, we will provide a more comprehensive update in the future to council regarding COVID, and what's going on with that. But we are adhering as much as we can to the governor's direction to reopen facilities. However, public agencies are not been included in that as of yet, to my understanding. We are still requiring masks. We probably will provide some relief for that September 1st if everything continues the direction it's going now. And we're not asking people to verify vaccinations, in exchange for which everybody in City Hall who's in there for whatever reason needs to be wearing a mask. And so we're just moving forward with that. Our Emergency Operations Center continues to meet, share information, and hopefully help us move through the pandemic. And Mayor, that is all that is on the City Manager's report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I will say the staff really came together on that cooling center and the partnership with Highline College. I want to thank our city clerk, Bonnie Wilkins. I had spoken with her over the weekend after I had a conversation with State Rep Tina Orwell, and she was excellent at connecting people together and so forth. So I want to share my appreciation there. And Shannon also was instantly responsive. So I really want to say how much I appreciate that. Staff did an outstanding job, as they are known to do. And I saw a hand from Councilmember Bangs real quick.
Yeah, really quick. Michael, is it possible to, if we haven't already, posted what exactly the police department were able to do during the 4th of July time period, so that the public can see exactly how much work they did?
Yeah, we have a summary. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have a summary of the 4th, which I think Bonnie could post on our website and let people know. Our police were very active. Really appreciated their efforts.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, that takes us forward to our consent calendar. And so if I could ask the clerk to please read the consent calendar.
Item 1, Des Moines Normandy Park Interlocal Agreement for Senior Services 2021 to 2022. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney, with a close second to that by Councilmember Banks. Is there any member that wishes to remove anything from the consent calendar? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Bangs, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Passes 6-0. Okay, this takes us forward to new business. And we have draft ordinance number 21-024, prohibiting attendance at unlawful racing events. And we have a staff presentation by our Assistant City Attorney, I believe, Matthew Hutchins.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and other assorted attendees. All right. Matthew Hutchins, Assistant City Attorney at the City of Des Moines. I will be giving the staff presentation for consideration of draft ordinance 21-024, which would create 2 new offenses and a new chapter in Title IX of the Des Moines Municipal Code addressing attendance at unlawful racing events. As you are all likely aware, illegal street racing has been an issue in South King County for decades. What makes the modern street racing a serious problem is not only the dangerous driving itself, but also the large crowds, often numbering in hundreds of people gathering to watch and participate in the vehicle displays. There we go. During the pandemic, local law enforcement have seen a marked increase in both the number of events and the dangerousness of the events. They have included incidents of violence, clashes with police, and in at least one case, a fatal shooting. So what can we do about these sorts of events? Law enforcement already has some tools that they can use to address the racers themselves. These include criminal charges for, among other things, reckless driving, reckless endangerment, and in the serious cases, vehicular assault or vehicular homicide. But currently, neither state law nor the Des Moines Municipal Code adequately addresses the large attendance at these events. In 2001, the City of Kent enacted the first unlawful race attendance ordinance in the state of Washington. It has been considered very successful, and it has since been followed by the cities of Kent, Auburn, Puyallup, Sumner, and Fife, among others. So it would be a fair question to ask whether this racing phenomenon is something that's confined down in the valley, and does Des Moines will need to take the step of this ordinance? The answer I'm going to give you to that is that while it is not yet common in Des Moines, it has already been here. What I'm going to show you is a few seconds of footage that was taken in Des Moines last September. A few things you might want to take note of are the large crowd, the extensive tire marks on the asphalt, how close the automobiles get to the pedestrian spectators, and in a minute, how much the traffic is backing up into the city streets. Kent Police have also noted a large number of gatherings on the West Hill on their side of Pacific Highway, and of course, the issues at Redondo have been well documented. The good news on this video is Des Moines Police reports that the owners of the property were very proactive when they were told about this incident. They quickly took steps to ensure that this sort of after-hours event does not happen again. This sort of prevention with the cooperation of property owners is the way we would prefer to keep illegal street racing events out of Des Moines. But the police department, with the concurrence of legal, we believe that a street race attendance ordinance is an appropriate and necessary tool to deal with any events if prevention proves to not be enough. So what would this ordinance do? It creates a new offense called unlawful race attendance that contains 3 elements. You have to attend an unlawful race event as defined by the ordinance, while knowing that an unlawful race event is occurring, has occurred, or is about to occur, and you have to have the intent to observe, support, encourage, or participate in the event. To help or police, the judge, a jury determine whether these three elements have been met. The ordinance sets out a non-exhaustive list of factors to determine whether the violation has occurred. Some of these are whether the person was interacting with the participants, whether they appear to be acting as a lookout, whether they take flight at the sight of police, or whether there's any reasonable explanation why that crowd would be there at that place at that time, other than for illegal street racing events. The penalty for a person who has not previously been charged and found to have committed an unlawful race event attendance charge. The ordinance as currently drafted sets the penalty for violation as a Class 2 civil infraction with a penalty of up to $256. For a second offense, excuse me, where the person has previously been found to commit the offense, it is a misdemeanor with up to 90 days in jail and or a $1,000 fine. The second piece of the ordinance would allow the judge of the judge of the municipal court to issue a stay out of areas of racing order to defendants charged with certain crimes related to illegal street racing, which would include unlawful race attendance. The order can be issued either as a pretrial condition of release, or can also be issued post-conviction as a condition of a suspended sentence or deferred sentence. Conditions of the order may include restriction on going to unlawful race events. It can prohibit the individual from entering a specified area where racing is known to occur, and the judge may impose any other crime-related prohibitions that the judge finds appropriate. Violation of this order would be a separate criminal offense, also a misdemeanor, and would subject the violator to immediate arrest. And that concludes my presentation. Here are the suggested motions as provided in your packet, and I will open it up for questions.
I see, let's see, I can't see. Okay, I see Councilmember Harris. I see Councilmember Nutting. And I see Deputy Mayor Mahoney. Do you see anyone else? Okay, so I will start with Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So 2 questions, Matt. This may sound silly, but can one person constitute a race?
Yes, as a matter of fact. I'll have to pull up the ordinance. But for example, something like what you saw in the video where a person was breaking traction and doing donuts, drifting, whatever you want to call it, that would be sufficient under the definition under the ordinance to be an unlawful racing event. And if there were a number of individuals there to observe it, they would be violating the ordinance.
So where I'm going with this is, there's a guy in Redondo and he basically just floors it and he's going 80 until he hits the speed bumps, okay? And the residents above take video of him doing this with his license plate, and they are willing to testify. Is that something that we can prosecute?
I guess the question is, who are you asking could be prosecuted?
It's a very common thing for people to, enter Redondo and just floor it, okay? And just go from 0 to 60 and, for a short distance. That seems to be entertaining. And, it drives people nuts.
So, the driver then, you're
Yes.
referring?
Sorry, yes.
I suppose a case could be made that he is demonstrating behavior that would be an unlawful race event, is present and with the intent to participate in it. I think probably just a straight charge of reckless driving would be more appropriate in that case. That's a gross misdemeanor and it comes with a 30-day license suspension. But hypothetically, it could be charged. I don't know if you'd be able to make a conviction with it. But
Okay.
as a law school question, I would say, yes, you could charge.
I'm just looking for a practical application for that. Okay, the second thing is there any accommodation for signage? Or is that something, I'm new at this, so is there a possibility to amend the ordinance to put signage in key places announcing the ordinance?
That is not something that is in this draft ordinance. It was considered as places like Kent, Renton, Auburn with large straightaways that are very attractive to racers. They do have designated zones where it is posted. We thought it was probably not appropriate for Des Moines, given that we don't have the same geography. And the problem with doing that is it's not proactive. You're more chasing the areas where racing occurs. And so that requires coming to council. That is something if the council wanted to address, either areas could be, this ordinance could be amended, or a later ordinance could amend what we have and add zones where it would be signed. But that is sort of used as a just another thing to consider whether they've committed the crime, but I don't think is necessary in our case. And the way our orders from the court are structured, the judge can just designate whatever area police can establish is a racing problem. So I don't think it's necessary, but if the council wanted, we could bring forward a future ordinance.
It was just suggested by residents as a deterrent. Simply having a sign in a couple of key spots might, send a message to wannabe racers. Yeah.
It is something that could be done, but it is not in the current form.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then I'm going to go to Councilmember Nutting, and I wanted to note that I recognize Councilmember Bangs, so I'll go Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and then Councilmember Bangs in the order, and I see Councilmember Buxton after that. So Councilmember Nutting, you have the floor.
I move to suspend Rule 26A in order to enact draft ordinance number 21-024 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend Rule 26A by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Buxton. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. This does not preclude the discussion. Okay, so I see Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Bangs, and myself. Opposed? I see Councilmember Harris. So this passes 5-1. Okay, this takes us, we have a motion on the table. I'll go back to Councilmember Nutting.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Street racing, as we saw in that video, the attendees, and the fact that we don't have anything on the books, and to get this in the tool belt of our officers as soon as possible is the best way to go about it. And we've heard the cries from Redondo, we've heard the cries from Woodmont, we've heard the cries from everybody about what's going on. Lowe's up here in Kent spent probably $100,000 retrofitting their parking lot to keep the people out of there. And all of our cities around it, it's a no-brainer. So in that, I move to enact draft ordinance number 21024, adding a new chapter to Title 9 DMMC and creating a new offense, unlawful race attendance.
Second.
Okay, I have the motion made by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Bangs. We will continue with discussion. Councilmember Nutting, did you have an additional comment, or did you want me to move to the next individual?
Thank you, Mayor. It's okay to move on. Thank you.
Thank you. I am now going to Deputy Mayor Mahoney. Oh,
Oh, yeah, I'll go after Michael.
one second. I'm sorry. City Manager Matthias, your microphone is off, but and I did not see that you had a comment to add to the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Sometimes people are pleased when the microphone's off. Just kidding. The thing, I just want to mention something that's really important in this, and I appreciate so much the council taking up this issue and coming to some resolution, and Matt's work on this, and Tim as well. But I just want to point out two things that are really important in this. One, the film you saw occurred in Des Moines at the business park. And the next morning after that event was over, even, and police were trying to break it up at the time, we contacted the site supervisor for that property. And within the end of the day, they had chain link protection against entry into that parking lot. So that was the property owner taking responsibility to make sure this didn't happen again, and it has not. And secondly, there was a plan a while ago, I think you may all recall this, where there was supposed to be street racing at Redondo. And so what happened was, because we were able to learn about this in advance, all our patrol officers from that shift and 4 Washington State Patrol officers as part of our mutual aid and support, and several other jurisdictions all joined together and made their presence known, and the street racing was averted to another city. So I just want to say that this is one piece of private sector support and help, the law enforcement acting appropriately and in mass to stop these things. And the problem with it is, addition to everything else about street racing and injuries and noise and terrible recklessness, is that those police officers that were deployed to Redondo at that time left the rest of the city without the support that may be needed depending on what's going on. So this consistently depletes our resources, and hopefully that this legislation will help curtail those activities in our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
First of all, I'm glad we're taking this step for a deterrent for this nuisance to our residents and protecting them from what's unsafe. I wanted to talk a little about the punitive piece. The Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee met 3 times on this subject. We had a great discussion about the punitive portion of this. So we were looking at what we could do. And at first it was originally a misdemeanor right off the bat. In conversation, what we did is we came up with a principle. There's basically 4 classes of infractions. Class 1 would be $513. Class 2 is $256. Class 3 is $107. And class 4, if I'm not mistaken, is $51. There was some conversation where they wanted it. One member of our committee wanted it at 107. But when you look at it legally, judge is really going to usually, if they find that they're they find compassion, they'll usually lower it about 30%, which would have made about $70. We looked at 256 and 513 and had a big discussion about whether we should go there. The committee settled on 256. The reason why we did that is it'd be about if there's mitigation, to be about $175. But we made the second offense a misdemeanor. So we want to send a message, for those people, there might be some kids there, they're there and they shouldn't be there, and they get slapped hard enough and it costs them some money. But the next time it's a pattern. And then to do this, we really wanted to send the message that we don't want this type of activity in our city. So we felt the first step, the first offense, was appropriate. And the second, obviously, is definitely level because it's happened twice. So I just wanted you guys to know that behind the thing, but I fully support this.
Okay, next person is Councilmember Bangs.
Thanks, Matt, for bringing that up. I was going to mention some of that, but you did a good job. However, I want to piggyback off of Councilmember Harris's comment because I didn't understand Matt's answer to address it. So there was a video taken of a street racer, including the license plate. Is that enough, that video, to take that driver to court? I did not understand you to say yes or no, or is that possible or impossible?
Yes, if the driver can be satisfactorily identified, that with the testimony of the person who actually saw it, in some cases at least, would be enough to sustain a charge.
So video plus testimony.
Yes, if
Tim?
Oh, he also said identity. I mean, that's the important piece.
Okay.
If you have a video from your deck of a car flying by, even if you get the license plate, it could be the husband, the wife, the kid, the next door neighbor. We can't charge that. So we would need, a zoom in, or we would need a video of the person getting in the car. And we would need to establish beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's a criminal charge, who that driver is. So it's a lot different than a school zone ticket or a red light ticket. Those are set up by the legislature separately and they have different standards. But criminal charges, yeah, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And so, just a video of a speeding car would not be enough.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going forward to Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this coming forward, especially with so many concerns over these kinds of violations in the city. Is this ordinance that we're passing based on other cities' ordinances that have been in existence and vetted for a long time? Did we use something as a template for this?
Yes, it is based partly on Kent's, with pieces taken from other jurisdictions, most or all of which appear to have been based on Kent's.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So I do have a couple comments then. I know that one of the issues is in regard to a second hearing, suspending Rule 26A. So I wanted to give a little justification for my second on that. I appreciate the concern for not allowing a second presentation, and in regard to our rule, I think it is wise to establish a habit of observing Rule 26A versus suspending it. However, not for my opinion for tonight, and in this case, I don't believe that's true. I believe that there's a good reason for moving forward based on well, this answer that Matt just gave, based on other codes that have been in effect and vetted for 20 years. So we've got a lot in our sister cities, a lot of information and vetting that's gone into street racing ordinances. So we have, this isn't something brand new that we wrote up ourselves based on our own experience. This ordinance has been looked at a lot. It's been 3 times in our public safety committee. I think the discussion in the intent was to address our summer activity originally. So I think we're into our summer. There's a little bit of need to accelerate this. The concern for consequences, I noticed there's language that says up to. So the judge in our ordinance, the judge has a lot of latitude in issuing consequences. If we wait till second reading, it's 30 days before this ordinance can be enacted. So that's 2 more weeks. That puts us into August before we can even address this if we wait. And I think the most important thing for me, though, is public opinion. But I feel like our public opinion has been pretty clear on many other fronts and with some very strong language. A lot of communication into my email in regard to these kinds of violations in our community and also on our community pages. So I do scan those quite often. So it's pretty, to me anyway, it's been pretty clear the public opinion on these kinds of issues. I did actually scanned a little bit more today. I thought something had been posted in regard to this ordinance recently, but I couldn't find it. I was hoping for possibly a comment from Councilmember Martinelli to help me out on that, but I still feel pretty strongly, and I'm going to advocate for this to move forward tonight. So thank you.
Okay, I saw Councilmember Banks' hand come up, but before I recognize her, and then did I see Councilmember Harris as well? Okay, so I want to make a few comments. And then I'll go to Councilmember Banks and then Councilmember Harris. You know, I really respect the work that's been done on this, and this is, I think it's absolutely essential that we move forward with something in this case. When you talk about public opinion, I can't think of something in recent years that has lit up our email as much as street racing, inappropriate driving on the roads, recklessness. And you know, the thing that I want to talk to the council about is that I understand and I appreciate Deputy Mayor Mahoney's explanation of why the amount was set at a class 2. I just know what people put into their cars that are involved in this kind of, we'll call it a sport. And I'm very curious. I'm wondering if 256 is enough. If we really want to send a message that we don't tolerate this here in Des Moines, I am wondering if it shouldn't be a class 1 infraction. Yes, it's $513, but word will get out on the street rather quickly that Des Moines doesn't tolerate this. And the thing about it is, one of these cars goes sideways. I mean, the video we were watching was not from the Fast and the Furious. It was not from Hollywood. This was really in our town. And we do have people that do race through here. And we hear about it all the time. So at the risk that I know that this amendment may fail, I do want to move to amend the section 2, subsection 3 of the draft ordinance 21-024 to replace the words class 2 civil infraction with class 1 civil infraction. And I'm making that motion. Do I have a second? I see Councilmember Harris. Are you seconding the motion, sir? You're muted, sir. I can't hear you.
Second.
Okay, I have made the motion to go to a class 1, and I have it seconded by Councilmember Harris. So at this point, instead of talking about the motion to enact the ordinance, we are now having discussion on the amendment. So before I call those, I had Councilmember Bangs and then Councilmember Harris in place to talk. Do you still want me to call you out the same way, and knowing that we are talking about the amendment?
If we're only talking about the amendment, that's not what I wanted to mention or
Okay.
talk about.
Well, okay, so at this point, Those interested in talking about the amendment, I see Councilmember Harris, I see Councilmember Buxton. Is there anyone else that wish? I see Deputy Mayor Mahoney. Anyone else? Okay, so I will start with Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reason I seconded this is that my company actually created marketing materials for a company that builds these exhaust devices. And they start at 800 and go up. People who want to do a lot of the noise and stuff like that, they really invest in it big time. And they're committed to it. So it's not like, I mean, I am 100% sure they're not, gee, I had no idea that this is illegal and so on. So I'm just letting you know, that's why I'm so enthusiastic in my support. That's it.
Next person is Councilmember Buxton.
So does the suspension of Rule 26A still apply if we amend the ordinance?
Yes.
So if we vote to amend the ordinance to raise it to a class 1 and it's passed, it will be passed without a second reading.
That is correct.
Okay. Just need to think about that for a second because
my motion does not change the ordinance. It changes the wording in the ordinance that just moves the type of civil infraction from a class 2 to a class 1. Okay. And then I have, before I go with Councilmember Nutting, I have Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Well, real quick, just a clarification. I don't think the noise issue is going to be handled by other ordinances. Am I correct on that? This is one in particular. This is about participating in an event. It doesn't have anything to do with the volume of the muffler. Correct?
Matt, Tim?
Yeah, Matt, Tim?
Yes, that is technically correct. Modified mufflers may be implicated in the event, but you don't specifically have to have a modified muffler to be cited with this charge.
Okay. My second comment, real quick, is that we weighed between 256 and 513, but I thought your argument, Mayor, was pretty good, and I'm leaning that way. I was on the fence between the two, but I definitely want to send these individuals a message, so I'd support that.
Okay, then I saw Councilmember Nutting's hand. Oh boy. Okay, so I've got it looks like Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Buxton, and Michael. City Manager Mathias, did you have a comment to interject that would help our discussion?
Hopefully. I just want to point out that the police, independent of street racing, have been taking noise measurements at Redondo and doing a number of things to try and address that issue, speeding and other things that are separate from what this would address relative to street, the racing events.
Okay, thank you. And now I'm going to Councilmember Nutting and then Councilmember Buxton.
I'm good. My only comment is Tracy should have just asked for a point of order instead of going into that as a question.
That's fine.
Been a point of order. So
thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Buxton.
So in addition, I think part of the concern is there was a concern about creating a criminal offense out of this. And that was part of the discussion about whether we should further this to a second reading or not. That was the concern. But raising this does not create it. In other words, voting for it as a class 2, it is a criminal offense at that point. So this amendment simply increases the penalty.
Yes, okay, so, and I will yield to our attorneys, but all my motion did was take the class 2 infraction to a class 1 civil infraction. They are both civil infractions. It does not change. The only thing it changes in this ordinance is the fine. It goes from 256 to 513. All of the rest of the ordinance remains the same. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. The first offense remains a non-criminal civil infraction. It just increases the maximum monetary penalty you would have to pay.
So the first offense is a non-criminal offense. It's simply a penalty.
That's
The
correct.
second offense becomes the criminal offense.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what we had from the time that this entered into discussion. My motion does not change that.
All right. I'm clear. Thank you.
Councilmember Bangs.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to understand something here. Motion 1 was based on a first reading. I don't see anything that talks about a second reading. Where is that coming up at?
If we were to pass an ordinance, it would normally go through 2 readings. But we have the authority as a council to invoke, sorry, I don't want to get it wrong. We can suspend Rule 26A, and that allows us to entertain the motion with a single reading, to entertain the action with a single reading. There are some items that we are not allowed to do this with. This is one that we are, and I look to our attorneys to be clear.
Yeah, that's correct. Our rules require 2 readings on ordinances unless the council decides to suspend the rules, which is also written in there. It's commonly done. We do it on almost every ordinance. We pass it on the first reading.
Right.
So if we've already moved past that first motion, so we're ready to pass it tonight, we're just questioning whether or not essentially the mayor's motion is going to pass regarding the penalty. So once we get through this motion, then we can discuss and vote on passing the final ordinance.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. I was getting pretty confused there for a minute, so.
Fair enough.
All right.
Well, so what I will do at this point is my motion is to amend section 2, subsection 3 of draft ordinance 21-04 and replace the words class 2 civil infraction at a $256 fine with the words class 1 civil infraction, which increases the first time offense fine to $513. And at this time, all those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Bangs, and myself. Okay. So that passes 6-0. Now we are moving forward to the draft ordinance 21-024, adding the new chapter to Title 9 of the DMMC and creating a new offense, unlawful race attendance, that was put forward by Councilmember Nutting and seconded by Councilmember Bangs. Is there further discussion at this time? I see Councilmember Bangs. I had you as number 7 and then Councilmember Harris. So I'll start with Councilmember Bangs and go to Councilmember Harris.
So I'm not sure if this is where it goes or if, Mayor, I am in favor of signage, and I want to know if that should go back to the public safety. Oh,
No, you're fine.
City attorney.
I just want to clarify Matt's answer. There's nothing in this ordinance or not in this ordinance that would stop us from putting up signs anywhere in the city that says race attendance is prohibited, $513 fine, and we'd cite our code. Matt was referencing a designation. If we designated specific areas, we would need to sign those areas.
Okay,
And we recommended not doing that because of
Yeah.
the randomness of the locations.
yeah,
But there's nothing, and I know Dan just popped on, but there's nothing that would stop us from printing these signs and posting them in high race areas. We could put the fine amount. It's strictly a financial thing that we could put in our
right.
traffic budget.
So I would say, Dan, Michael, this is something I'm sure we're all interested in having done. And I know that takes a little bit of money to make the sign and a lot of money for maintenance to put it up. But anyway, this is what I would propose.
Councilmember Bangs, might I suggest that you make that suggestion in the introduction of items for future consideration?
Oh, sure.
Or alternatively, after we vote on this, the council can provide additional direction that we would like to see those signs.
Okay.
I will yield to our attorney to provide us with the best means. Okay, so that takes us back to Councilmember Harris and then to Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, if Councilmember Bangs wants to propose that, I will support it. I was just looking for a sign at some key areas, entrances to the city and Redondo that just say street racing is illegal with the ordinance number and the fee. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Nutting.
So I believe the correct procedure is for me to go, I move to enact draft ordinance number 21024, adding a new chapter to Title 9 DMMC and creating a new offense, unlawful racing attendance as amended.
Second.
I beat you.
I'm going to give it to Councilmember Bangs because she did second the first one, the original. And yes, Councilmember Nutting, thank you for restating that. At this point, we have been through a considerable amount of discussion on it, so I'm going to ask for the vote. All those in favor of the motion as just read as and noting amended by Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Bangs, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Bangs, and myself. This passes 6-0. Before we go on to the next section on our agenda, I want to ask the question of City Manager Matthias and our attorneys, Tim George and Matt Hutchins. There's a clear desire, at least in consensus, that some signage be put up within the city. And I believe that falls under Dan Brewer at some point. So is this something that we need to take an action on, or is this something like a no parking sign that the city can choose to put up?
So Mayor, let me at least start the response to that. Typically, implementation of traffic related issues falls to the administration with
Yes.
direction from council. So I think you provided direction relative to street racing, an ordinance, a fee schedule. And I think it would, and we heard loud and clear your interest in there being appropriate signage. I'm hesitant for council to engage directly in what that might look like, because that opens the door and we are held to standards established by the state, the county, ourselves, and others. So if you will trust us to come up at least with a plan that we can show you what the signage might look like, and if you have suggestions and so forth. But I don't think we require a formal direction to do that. And Dan, do you want to also comment?
Yeah, I agree with everything Michael has said. We can come up with some signing, and I think we have the direction we need from council.
Okay.
To install the signing. So.
Okay, I think we understand. I think our direction has and our desire has gone forward, and I think we need to leave things in the hands of administration on this.
Works for us.
Okay, so I'm going to move forward to introduction of items for future consideration. Sorry, there's a speech problem here. Is there anyone who has anything? Okay, seeing none, I am going to take us forward to board and committee reports. And tonight, we start with Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Economic Development Committee met this evening, and our first presentation was on House Bill 1220. It passed. And what this does is forces cities to allow emergency housing in areas that are allowed for hotels. And this was widely talked about in the committee. There's deadlines for us to follow in enacting this ordinance in our city. We are looking to revisit this on the 29th, I believe it is, to get some more information and to see a draft ordinance put in place. But and yeah, it's not looking good. It came from Seattle and it's being forced upon other smaller cities to enact, and we just got to come up with a way to mediate the challenges involved. And then we were briefed on the Growth Management Act from King County planning policies, and it was approved with some amendments, but there's probably going to be some changes possibly towards the end of next year with other amendments due to housing and supply and demand and that kind of stuff. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that as the year goes on. And then I just want to thank staff for setting up the cooling facilities with Highline College, helping out our community members. That was really great. And thanks staff for all their hard work with the presentation. So that's all I have for you tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I will basically never vote to override, Rule 26A, simply because I always want the public to have another swing at the bat, at commenting. A lot of times people just happen to watch these meetings a few days later now, that's when they develop an opinion about it. Had nothing to do with my feelings about the ordinance and the merits. And I want to thank Mr. Wallstrom for showing up. Again, it's really great when the public has a very specific idea that they want to advocate for. You don't want to tell engineering how to solve the problem. You just let them do it. But that spot kind of reminds me a little bit of the bottom of 272nd. So, I really want to compliment the staff presentation on House Bill 1220 at the Economic Development Committee meeting. And I would urge the city to post that video and the presentation prominently. It was perhaps the most important presentation I've seen since I've been on the council. And this is the kind of thing that I'm pretty sure the entire town is going to want to start thinking about, really. I attended last week the Burien Climate Action Plan. They've had a number of community meetings, and their city has developed legislation to try to actively see what they can do about climate change, creating policies to increase tree cover and reduce waste and encourage people to do remote work. It's really a good thing that they formalized that and gave it some structure. Let's see, I spoke with the directors of Health Point, and they say that they will be in contact with the city. They want to increase awareness of the various services they offer. They're, right on 260th, and they have a lot of capacity to help people in the South End with medical, dental, mental health service. Finally, I just wanted to, I want to thank the chief and the officers for their work on July the 4th. That probably is not the most fun way to spend a 12-hour shift. Basically, where every single call is going to be somebody doing something they know they shouldn't be doing, and they're just going to do it anyway. And that's why I voted to increase the fine for the street racing for exactly the same reason. People who do street racing, they know that what they are doing is illegal. It's not like whoops. They're very intentional. I was at the old Des Moines Elementary at about 11 o'clock on July the 4th. I walked over there because it was just so loud, and I saw it was amazing to me how many grown men were taking turns like shooting off mortars, and it's ridiculous. And any empathy I may have had for home fireworks just went out the window. It's perfectly dry. There's a plywood portable there. It was insane what they were doing in terms of fire safety. So yeah, I am very pleased that the police are taking enforcement more seriously. It's the direction the town should be going in. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I noticed that Phyllis is still on listening here, attending our meeting. And she was cut off during her public comment. So I just wanted to address it just for a moment. Thank you for your kind comments and remarks, Phyllis. I appreciate that. And I just wanted to clarify, there was some issues with some limbing of her trees. And I wanted you to know that you've been heard, Phyllis, and there's a procedure in place to give extra consideration to residents in this situation. So thank you for your courage, for coming on like this, and for contacting me. I appreciate you, and I wanted to let you know that. So you've been heard. I also wanted to say, let's see, I attended a really great community event. It was a downtown cleanup organized by Michelle Fawcett. It's Salon Michelle. She does this on occasion, and it was a great community bonding experience, as well as just being able to clean up a segment of our downtown corridor. So I'm really appreciative of her organizing that. And our farmers market is in full swing. And because the state has opened up, there are no masks required. It's an outdoor activity. Dogs are welcome, which was something that was difficulty for many people during COVID. So we're happy about that. And the gates are up. So parking is free on Saturdays until, I believe, 10 p.m. if someone can help me with that. On Saturdays, if you come down, even if the market is done, there's still free parking on Saturday. And so I hope to see some of you down there. It's a great festive environment down at the marina on Saturdays. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Councilmember Banks.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Tracy, for your comment, because I was going to ask if based on Ms. Crawford's testimony, as well as Mr. Wallstrom, if staff would be taking all of that under consideration. So thanks for saying something was in the works. I attended a Senior Services Advisory Committee meeting this evening, and the flooring in the senior center is done. The walls are painted, and now they're in the process of cleaning up. Eventually, there'll be an open house. What they did mention was that there would be probably some soft openings, but that's going to be really dependent upon city manager and staff. They started walk-ups for lunch this past Tuesday. Seems to be a little lower. Now it's climbing again. So maybe people are just getting used to not being in their cars and now they have to walk. I don't know. We'll see. The programs are still being considered. And again, that's going to be dependent upon what city manager and staff are going to do related to safety. But hopefully there'll be some programs that come back, not all, but some. The shredding event went well. I guess there were like 60, 70, 80 carloads of people, which was great. And now I have something I want to bring to city manager and city attorney's attention. There was a huge issue related to that cleanup that occurred. I wasn't here in town, so I wasn't able to attend. But that cleanup was something really good. I can't remember how many tons, but I'm sure Deputy Mayor Mahoney will tell us. In front of the lighthouse and in front of the sports bar, even though there are cigarette receptacles that they can put their cigarettes in, one of the organizers, along with Michelle, was Jeff Crump. And he said they spent so much time picking up cigarette butts, it was unreal. Is there anything the city can do to enforce those businesses to clean up after every night? Because that happens every night. I don't know if there is. I'm just asking the question. You don't have to answer me, but it's something that would be very beneficial, and those cleaning up the city, which we do often, would really appreciate knowing if there is anything that can be done. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And that takes us forward to Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. To answer your question, Councilmember Banks, we didn't get a wait, but it filled up a truck and then some, and filled up a dumpster. I wanted to thank the city clerk for coordinating a way to dispose it with the city resources. I really appreciated that. Unfortunately, we did fill it up, but it was good, and a lot of people felt good about contributing to their city. Really quick, the big one I want to thank Michael and the staff is the Triangle Park. Even though it was a little paint and it was cleaned up, that looks so much better than it had before. And I just, as a veteran, and I know, Michael, you have family members that served, I believe in World War I. And so to pay homage to the veterans and those that served and are no longer with us, I'm just joyful about. So thank you very much. I wanted to thank Ms. Crawford and Mr. Wallstrom. I appreciate when people come to council with constructive comments and suggestions. That's really appreciated. So thank you for that. A couple things that are in the future. July 17th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to have what's called a Sea Pup Patrol Event. And this is a great event, and I'm expecting everybody to make a donation. I'll put you on it. The deal is if you donate $30 or more, so there's no hesitancy to go a little bigger if you want. It's a tax deductible donation. But what you'll do is that money's going to go to SR3. And we've been, I know they've been taking care of some seal pups and things and giving them a fighting chance to survive, where human interaction has caused them to be separated from their mothers, et cetera. But they do a lot of great work, but they need that funding. But what's great about this is a double win, because there's going to be these cute stuffed animals, and those animals are going to be given to our DMPD. And I want to thank the Des Moines Police Department as well for partnering with us. They're going to get those animals, and those animals will be given when our officers encounter children in distress, and it'll be comforting. There was a story about one particular child. She's about 12 or 14 now, but she still recalls the moment that she got that animal and how it helped her in that time of need. So this is a great event and a great time. And that's going to be probably located pretty close to the quarter deck and the farmers market on that Saturday. And I want to thank SR3, Casey McLean, And Doreen Harper and Sheila Brush for their participation and volunteering in this event as well. The other one I want to talk about is we are going to have a parade on July 24th. Now, it's not the typical traditional parade that we run through town. It's going to be an event that's going to be a car procession that'll be virtually live fed, so you can watch it on your computer or your phone or so forth. And it's going to meander from Redondo through Woodmont, down to Marine View Drive, through Zenith, and then circle our town. There'll be some great performances, and we'll culminate it with an event at the south end of the marina. And I want to thank the city for your help in this regard, and approving our permit and using the resources that are in providing the resources we need. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. My comments will just be brief. They are all centered around gratitude. We had high levels of bacteria in the sound. We had a sewage spill, unfortunately, from another entity. We had high temps that were record-breaking events. And then we had the 4th of July. And this city and its staff stepped up every time to do what was right for the community. And I can say, yes, I heard fireworks on the 4th of July, but I heard fewer fireworks than I've heard in the past. To Councilmember Harris's point, some people are just going to do what some people are going to do. But our law enforcement team did confiscate a number of fireworks. They were out there doing what they had to do. And sometimes this is a difficult encounter, because you have a group of people in a cul-de-sac and they're doing something, and they've got essentially, they're mortars, they're explosives. And here we have our men and women in blue going in saying, hey, can't do this, got to break this up. And these situations can go awry. And I've heard of them in my time here. And again, they do this so for our protection. And everything that this staff has done from, I can sit and rattle off a series of names and so forth, but the truth of the matter is this team under City Manager Matthias, with everybody that he's got, comes together to do what's right for this community. And I couldn't be more grateful. I am so humbled and appreciative of all of the staff that we have here. I just think this is amazing. So I just want to extend my gratitude, because the work that was done, could we do better? Could we do more? Well, we try. We do our best every time, and we learn from it. So could you do better? Could you do more? You don't know until you do it the first time. And when you get to 108 degrees for the first time, you do the best you can. By the way, the swamp cooler idea I saw on TV may have worked for some people, but that ice melted too fast for me to cool my house. So anyway, just wanted to share that. And I wanted to, thank the city staff for all that they do on behalf of this community. And with that, we are at the end of our meeting tonight. Our next meeting will be on July 22nd. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Looks like I have the motion by Councilmember Banks, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, please raise your hand and until I call your name. Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Bangs, myself, and do I see City Manager Matthias? Oh, just kidding. Anyway, we are adjourned.